This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium.
Episode 91, Soul vs. Yin.
Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martins and Hunter Donaldson.
Your system for numbering the episodes is so crazy to me. Like, I can't believe you should do, this is now the start of the episode.
This is it.
It wasn't even going to be it, but now you said that crazy thing of like, well, if Dune starts, then that won't feed into how many episode numbers there are. That's so...
It's season 2.
No, guys, listen. He is going to, when we start doing the next game, he's going to start another set of numbers for those episodes.
It'll be Dune 01.
Dude, no podcast works like that. Like, there's no... and in
every
fact,
podcast works like that.
I'm going to look at it right now.
No, that's a thing you can do is set up seasons within a podcast. Dune is our second season.
Sure. So, but that's not what 100
Season 2,
episodes
episode 1.
means. So we're going to get to 100 for your weird numbering system, but technically this is episode 99 and the next one will be 100.
Well, what's funny about that is 3 of those episodes are like that. Like after episode 4 or whatever, 3, we did a Yin errata as an entire episode, but it was just later in the week. We've got like 3 of those where it's like, that's not an episode. The Yin guide prank.
That's a whole episode by this. There's
really
also the episode where you're just like, hey, it's going to be late this week. Do you remember when we would do that?
I deleted those, but yes.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was funny that we were at a point with the show where we were so scared about like releasing it late that we did put something out of just that's pretty crazy too. That's not normal. That's not how people normally do this.
I've seen that. I didn't come up with that. I've seen that before.
All right. Well, I don't know why we started fighting at the beginning of this one, but
you know who has been fighting and someone just lost?
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so this is it. We're 6 weeks in. Game of Thrones, Mother of Dragons is gone for the Game 2 debate.
Yeah.
I like how we also, part of this discussion was us assuming it's Dune. If you want to change that, now's your chance. You got 2 weeks. It's Root versus Dune, and Dune has had a slight advantage on Root for the past few weeks. So you Root fans, if you're diehards for Root, you better show up for this last one, because otherwise...
Let's emphasize, though, it is a tight race.
Like, it is tight. It's very tight.
It easily could be Root. And I will say this. These are my 2 favorite games that we had in the list. Yep. So like I am very happy with all of this, and I will be happy with regardless of what this was true before even.
Yeah.
But now it's super duper true.
Yeah.
So regardless of whatever you guys pick, I am going to be so happy to talk about either of these games. I think they both look amazing and will be really cool. And I'm so excited to get this next leg of the show over and done with so that we can start moving on to newer things. I know it's probably felt like we've been kind of, in just kind of every week we're just talking about whatever, but this is our searching period. Every summer it's like we kind of go out into the wilds and just kind of search for what the show is going to be about. And,
GenCon is like a real reclamation period. Like August happens, and then from GenCon outward, it's like, I know what to do. Last year, GenCon, doing that was like basically when we decided to do the tournament, the Patreon tournament. And then we organized that around October. So it's like we're kind of coming up on one of those periods again, where like the whole show gets redefined again. Yeah. Because it'll basically ideally it'll be episodes of things about Dune, and then our strategy guides as well, like in conjunction with each other. It'll be hyper strategy time. So.
Right. And I think our goal is to eventually have so many different topics that Space Cats is about that there are so many different numbering systems that Matt just drops that, and there's just one set of numbers for the show.
Well, what should realistically happen is that they stop having episode numbers.
Right.
But
that's
not until I'm dead.
Yeah. Well, so Matt, what are we going to do today? I think we've got a pretty cool type of episode that we've never done before. We've talked about doing this before, probably even on the show. But it kind of
this
struck
was one
us
of our
today.
earliest ideas for episodes. This was a very old idea.
And actually, before we even throw it out there, I just want to say we are currently working on the Soul faction guide, new updated faction guide for Soul, and it's been really fun. That you won't actually get that for a while because we got to do Gen Con, and then so like September is like when you're going to get that. But in working on that, this topic kind of came up.
Right. It's we want to talk about faction relationships and like different matchups. And matchups can have a lot of different connotations because for some things it's like, ooh, you guys have this weird synergy and you should find ways to work together. Today's is like the opposite of that, which is Soul versus Yin. And like you two are basically mortal enemies, and there's not really a way around it unless you're sitting across the table and you just are able to never have interactions. But probably you're going to have interactions, even if you're across the table, because you're both Mechatol factions.
Right.
We'll get into that. But regardless, like, I think Soul and Yin, maybe more than any other two factions, like, have this awful back and forth. I was playing Soul today, and Good Yin Brotherhood member Fargo was playing Yin, and I kept feeling like Yin was my counter, but I'm sure Fargo felt the opposite of like, I hate being next to Soul. And I think that's like part of the definition of this relationship is really neither of you have the leg up on each other, but you two have to deal with each other all game.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in making this list of all their abilities. I feel like this was intentional, actually. And I'd never really worked that out before. I know it's actually kind of part of the lore, like the Yin are like clones. Like they have some sort of... Don't they have some sort of connection to Soul? We never talk about lore and theme anymore, but I'm pretty sure
someday
there's
we'll do
something.
a lore episode. But yeah, it's like a human guy that then cloned himself, and then that's the Yin.
Yeah. And they're all just clones of this one guy.
Right. So it fits
I heard the guy was
and...
Steve Martin. Is that true?
Oh, weird. What a weird callback. It's not. His name is Darien, and that's why the planet's named that.
Oh, Darien kind of sounds like Martin, though.
Steve Darien.
Maybe that's where Steve will land in the... Because I feel like the Steve Martin bit is one of the oldest Space Cats bit, but it was really just because you had a Steve Martin poster in your room, and now we don't even record in the same dang room.
Right,
so,
and the poster's not up anywhere here. All I got is Lion King.
So from now on, I'm just going to pretend that the Yin are all just Steve Martin clones.
I like that.
That's what it is. That's where it'll be now. But let's get to the serious part of the episode.
I want to talk about the game that I had today with the Gideon Brotherhood.
Tell us about it.
First off, crazy fun game. You know how sometimes a Gideon Brotherhood game is like, it started too early, or you didn't get enough sleep, or
the fire alarms going off in my
your
house.
Fire alarms going off in your house. This one was more or less flawless. Actually, there was one major flaw that happened, but it's not important. It's fine. Everybody's okay. So I was Soul. Fargo was my neighbor as Yin, and like from the get-go, I did not want to deal with that. And so I immediately decided that I was going to use my gravity drive early advantage, and like that's the thing you're supposed to do as Soul, right? Is like get somewhere, supplant yourself,
right?
Take and don't let them get it back. So I was like, that needs to be Yin's space. What's helpful too is I had Nalu to my left, so that was also kind of freaking me out, but I really want to focus on the Yin relationship because by like round 2 or 3, Nalu and I did a support for the throne swap anyways, so that stopped being a factor. So I was relentless. I was really mean to Fargo. I just kept wanting to dig into his slice because I knew at any moment, whenever Yin feels like it, if they can just like for one move turn out a bunch of ground forces, they can take any system they want from Soul. That's just always in their wheelhouse. And I think my number one regret from this game is not pulling the trigger and just absolutely taking a dump on Fargo. Now, I didn't want to do that because I enjoy playing with him and I enjoy playing with the GYB, and I did not want to, I just didn't want that to be the story of that game, is that like I really basically eliminated one of the players. That's not fun. But if it had been like a tournament game, I would have done that. I would have completely tried to landslide him.
And I mean, who knows if that would have paid off for you as far as you winning the game, but it would have paid off in that it would eliminate somebody that was a problem for you.
Right. So I spent a lot of the game extorting them, and I think what ended up being my problem is I gave them too many outs. He paid me off a number of times, and then there was one round where exactly what I thought would happen happened, where it was just like, okay, now Yin wants to attack Seoul. Nothing you can do about it. You're dead. It's over. He brought all the stuff he wanted to bring, and you didn't stand a chance. Which to me showed, like, look at how crazy this relationship was. Like, I had this early game pretty obvious advantage on him. Like, I was dunking on him and could have gone further, and then he completely turned it around and made it the exact opposite story, where by the late game it was like, oh my gosh, is Matt going to be able to hold on? This could be pretty bad for him. So I want to break down today. We want to break down why that happens. What is at work, and why these two have such a contentious relationship, and why there's like no way out. And hopefully we can try to offer advice on what you could do, what some of your options are. There's no perfect answer. I'll say that much up front. There is not an answer to this problem, but there's maybe many answers that you could try.
Yeah. I mean, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take the various faction abilities that they both have access to and kind of evaluate them against each other as ideas, and hopefully that will kind of paint a picture of like how these two factions are really interacting from almost like a game design perspective, but also just like within the scope of one game. Now, obviously, a lot of this stuff isn't going to apply if like you did a support swap with Yin or whatever. Like this is assuming that you are having a contentious relationship with Yin, or you're playing as Soul or whatever.
Yeah. And to get it out of the way, I wonder if that's maybe the only solution to this problem, but I don't think it is, because I think at some point that support for the throne swap could be in dangerous territory.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a good plan to arbitrarily decide that there's just a certain faction that you always try and do a support swap with. That's probably not the smartest thing, because people play these factions differently, and there's a lot of different variables for you to just decide across the board that's what you do. I also want to get out of the way before we get too deep into this, that our opinion is overall Soul is definitely the better faction to Yin.
Yes.
Right? Like, I mean, just taking everything into account, that's true. So if you listen to this and it sounds like we're really playing up Yin, remember that we did say that at the beginning.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think Soul has the better cohesion. They're able to pull off the better thing, but Yin has some dirty tricks up their sleeve that can still ruin that whole cohesion. So let's break down probably the most important abilities. There's a lot at work here, actually. It's kind of crazy to see how all these things bounce off of each other. But first and foremost, the reason this even starts off as a conversation is because of indoctrination versus orbital drop.
Right.
Indoctrination is the Yin Brotherhood ability, which reads, at the start of a ground combat, you may spend 2 influence to replace one of your opponent's participating infantry with 1 infantry from your reinforcements. They lose 1, you get 1. Soul's orbital drop is the ability where, as an action, a great stall, you can spend 1 token from your strategy pool to place 2 infantry from your reinforcements on 1 planet you control. So the difference here being orbital drop is more or less a defensive action, and indoctrination is mostly an offensive action. Obviously, it can still be used defensively, and it is incredibly powerful defensively, but orbital drop is by its very nature not offensive. Right? You're maybe making an offensive move, and then on your next turn using orbital drop to further defend that forward position, but you're not using orbital drop to drop 2 dudes on somebody else's planet. It is only on your own.
Right.
Versus indoctrination only happens during space combat. So I want to draw that line of like, one is active and forward, and the other is passive and defensive.
Yeah. I think a real difference between Yin and Soul in general is that with Soul to outplay Yin, they kind of have to plan really solid. Like, it's a lot of like, you have to have just kind of already gotten enough dudes out there to the critical spots. In order for Yin to not be able to get through. Whereas Indoctrination is so much more versatile in ability than Orbital Drop. And it's so like, Yin can look at Soul Slice and attack the weak point reliably, even though Soul is like the one with the kind of overall stronger position.
Right. Yeah, I think that flexibility is what makes Yin so scary for a Soul. Even if a Soul like could probably beat the Yin in most cases, the fact that they're terrorists, they can show up at any point and like wreck one of your main spots. So I kind of want to ask Hunter, do you think, we talked about Soul being better, but which infantry do you think is better, or do you? I mean, is there an answer to that question?
I mean, it's kind of a boring answer, but definitely Spec Ops 2 is going to be better than any of the Yin.
Right.
Infantry.
That's worth adding to this conversation now, is the idea that, I mean, a Soul is going to get ground forces that fight on a 6, and at best, Yin's going to get theirs fighting on a 7.
Right.
And even that, I think a lot of Yin should get infantry 2, but they don't all get infantry 2.
Right. Not to the extent that Soul always gets Spec Ops 2.
Right.
What's interesting, though, is because Indoctrination, you're only using at the beginning of combat, or is it at the beginning of every combat round? Look at this.
No, it's the beginning of combat. Yeah, one time.
So that kind of hurts the math a little for Yin. If it was something they could use every round, there could be like a really weird relationship between like, essentially, hey, I can just make this combat round go as fast as as long as I possibly can.
Right. The longer it goes, the better my odds get. Kind of thing.
So I mean, I think if we're talking a green-yellow Yin with infantry 2, it sounds close, but it's got to be Soul's Spec Ops basically.
Right. And I think too, the other idea here is we have to start talking about Soul's advanced carriers.
Right.
And inevitably Advanced Carrier 2. Because we start to get into a conversation of who is going to be able to overwhelm who.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is why we keep giving Soul the points. That's Soul's very nature. That's the whole point. Is like, I can, from the start of the game, I can bring 6 ground forces instead of just 4.
Right.
And if I upgrade my carriers, I'll get to 8. In this particular game I played today, I got Carrier 2 as fast as I could, because it makes the most sense. You want Gravity Drive round 1, so round 2 you're already ready to go with Advanced Carrier 2.
Right.
So I was pretty comfortable with that decision in terms of like, okay, early game, I can overwhelm Yin.
Yeah.
Pretty much right away. That's easy to do because I'm able to get infantry on the front lines and move them all around together with even just one carrier.
Sure. I want to cut in, though, real quick to say, though, that I think it's important to note that when we're talking about Advanced Carrier 2, we're also talking about an ability that is very good, I think, at getting specific units to a specific place, but not very good at getting infantry across the board, like to every planet that we might need within the slice.
Right. Because my whole thing is I can load 8 dudes, or more realistically, a few dudes and some fighters into one carrier, one very good carrier, and move that carrier 3 spaces away. Right? Mm-hmm. Gravity drive plus the single carrier. You're going very far with that carrier and taking it wherever you want. But like you're saying, Hunter, it's like a single precision strike. Whereas Yin's advantage is Yin is very good if they get transit diodes. If you get a yellow skip, it's even better. But even just, I think you should go for transit diodes as Yin right away.
Right.
And transit diodes allows you to be anywhere / everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that makes defending as Yin really interesting because you can just pop them up anywhere. Now, obviously, you could get transit diodes as Soul, but that's super uncommon. It's probably late game because doing the the blue green thing is just way better. So we're not coming from the standpoint of if Soul gets transit diodes, because it's just, even though it is cool, it is not better than their BG path.
Right.
But regardless, there's that idea that that Yin is kind of everywhere. You make a precision strike to one thing, then they can just next round transit diodes all those ground forces into one new spot and take somewhere else from you. I think that's part of this relationship between Yin and Sol is you took there, I'm going to take here. Then you went over here and took this spot. It's not like it's very hard as Sol to just overwhelm Yin.
Right.
And it's pretty hard as Yin to just straight up overwhelm Sol. It just depends on the timing of those strikes. So I guess when putting all those things together, the Advanced Carrier 2 plus Spec Ops 2 combination versus transit diodes plus indoctrination. Hunter, what do you think is the best move for each faction early? Like, let's say before the end of round 2, if you are neighbors, let's put you as Sol and then we'll put you as Yin. What do you think you're supposed to do against the opponent with kind of these early techs in mind? Let's say Yin's got a yellow skip and they're going to get an early transit diodes, and let's say Sol is going to get early Advanced Carrier 2.
I think it's a lot about reading the other player. So if I'm Yin, I feel like I'm not obsessed with. I'm obsessed more with getting solid control objectives from other players versus getting to Mechatol first. If we're talking about me versus Sol, I can't get there before Sol does, basically, period. I mean, unless I get like a lucky flank speed and Sol doesn't go for it for some reason. You don't have a fast path to Mechatol. So I think in that way, if we're going for transit diodes, it's more about filling out my slice, getting lots of dudes kind of spread out so that if Sol does strike at me, I can adjust. Yeah. I don't think there is a world where, like, I think one interesting thing about the relationship, and you kind of even mentioned this potential when you were talking about your game, is that if Sol decides I'm going to just go straight for Yin, no screwing around, then they're going to win that fight. You know what I mean? If it's just like, I'm going to load up all the dudes maxed out and I'm going to strike them here, I don't think Yin can handle that so good. But it's more that can Yin reliably take away things from Sol or kind of chip away at Sol? And we've seen so many Sol games lately too, where that's kind of the story with them anyways. So they kind of have a problem, I think, of like coagulating versus like filling out their slice.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest factor too, is Sol has to strike while the iron is hot and strike early. And I don't know, maybe I'll go back on this in the Sol guide, but it's really hard to not get an early lead as Sol, because that's just so much where your strengths lie, is get there, get the stuff, do the things as fast as possible.
Get to Mechatol,
and you're probably going to score points along the way. You should be, I don't know, maybe I'm going to decide later that like the only way to win as Sol reliably is to like back off a little bit. But the current feeling is like you better go fast. And the thing with Yin is, if Yin is able to get kind of everything online, that's when they become just an absolute behemoth.
Right.
So I do think Sol needs to strike fast and hard. And I think Yin, their job is to try to like spread out and not make it to where one attack from Sol crushes them, right? Like you want, because Sol can only target one spot at a time really effectively, you need to just be everywhere right away so that at any point your retaliation can come from everywhere. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket as Yin, Sol will probably get the better of you.
Yeah. Also, as long as you can indoctrinate a Sol that's hell bent on taking a Yin out of the game, it's gonna be slow unless they can go right for the throat, basically. Right. Because every fight, Yin can tip the odds a little more in their favor, meaning the more fights, the more indoctrinate is going to help them, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we have another wrench to throw in here. We got another problem, because the conversation of how they counter each other is not over. The stream was very adamant about this today, of making sure I got Advanced Carrier 2 fast, which I agreed with. I just love the movement. But the really great point to Advanced Carrier 2 is Devotion is still a problem. I don't think Devotion's like the best ability in the world, but Yin starts with, a destroyer, and they can easily build more, and devotion lets them assign hits. And the last thing you need is to have a carrier without sustained damage, which is the advantage of Advanced Carrier 2. So it's especially important to upgrade those carriers. This is why I advocate going Advanced Carrier 2 against Yin and not digging into Spec Ops too fast. If you go Spec Ops too fast, you probably won't be able to overwhelm them, and they'll snipe your carriers. But if you get Advanced Carrier 2, you can bring more ground forces and protect that carrier better.
See, I would say though this point is I think the part that I would hate the most as a player, if I was Yin's neighbor, because I feel like I've said this on the show before, but I am not really that crazy about Advanced Carrier 2 the longer we go. The reason I don't care for it as much is I feel like because their base level carriers already have a higher capacity. It feels like a win more to me. But this particular situation is very solid in that if I was playing, I would be like, well, I guess I have to get Advanced Carrier 2. But I don't prefer that. I don't feel like Advanced Carrier 2 most of the time in the early to mid game range really opens up any more options for me. Whereas going further down green, maybe even getting hypermetabolism is, I think, the smarter play. In general, but I mean, you can't let them carrier snipe you, and it's a very real problem. When Yin is and also, isn't it cool that we've come so far? Now we're saying there's good things about devotion. This is
that's
crazy.
that's a big step for me. What's funny too about it is that what this ends up doing to your fleets is like your fleets will also directly like kind of counter each other, because now. I've even seen, like, because I think Yin should get transit diodes, you're right there next to Impulse Core, the Yin faction tech. Impulse Core is at the start of space combat. You may destroy one of your cruisers or destroyers in the active system to produce one hit against your opponent's ships. That hit must be assigned by your opponent to one of his non-fighter ships, if able, which is huge. Now, they're not assigning it like they are with Devotion, but the whole point is, if they bring 2 destroyers to any fight where you just have 1 carrier, they Impulse Core the first destroyer, and if it's your only carrier, you have to take the hit there, and then they kill their other destroyer to snipe your. They can still snipe your carriers, even though you've tried to make it more difficult for them. And the other flip side advantage of this is, as Soul, your best fleets are probably Advanced Carrier 2s and Fighter 2s.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing is I don't want to get Advanced Carrier 2. I want to get Fighter 2. That's what I'm more excited about getting. For me, it's like, I think in an ideal game, I get Gravity Drive first and then Fighter 2, like right off the bat. Because especially with the problem that we're talking about that Soul has of like, oh, they kind of get gutted a lot except for like their home system and Mechatol Rex. Like there's a lot of games like that. I think there is a place for a gum the works early game Soul play. Where it's all about making it hard for people to come in and take your less defended planets. And trying to be clear, I'm not saying that Soul is weak defensively so much as like oftentimes you kind of have to pick and choose your battles, basically.
And the fact that Yin's coming at this fight with destroyers that are going to anti-fighter barrage your fighters and then devotion your carriers, it's just like you don't feel like you ever get any advantage. But I'm sure Yin feels about the same way with the fact that you just keep showing up with so much stuff. You just keep pounding them with all of these units. So the question then becomes how, and we've broken this down a little bit, but how do you overwhelm each other? It's a bit of Soul doing it early and Yin doing it late, but I think it becomes a chess match, right? Of you really do have to just sit there and watch each other, because you have to find every weak point at every moment, and you're going to keep taking each other's weak points.
See, I think of it more like if I'm playing Soul up against Yin, let's pretend that we're playing like a 1v1. I feel like my thing is I'm just going to be like, I'm just going to build like literally have so many ground forces that Indoctrinate isn't going to turn the tide ever, to the point where they even maybe have to question whether they want to use it or not. And so it's just this big blob, right? And I just throw it at them. I don't think there is much that they can do. If anything, devotion is the scarier ability in that scenario.
Yeah.
That they're going to destroy the capacity, basically.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm Yin, it's essentially a poking and prodding type of game.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, I took this, and then we transited diodes over there, and now there's like 6 dudes on this planet, and it's right next to your home system, and as soon as I can get them over there, it's going to be scary, basically.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for both these factions could come down to where a forward space dock ends up. In this game, neither Yin or I got forward space docks. And I had a moment where I could have taken out his home system. His home system was basically empty, and I had an opportunity to jump on it, and instead I took I extorted him, and I regretted it, because if you can knock out Yin's production center for ground forces, there's your chance as Seoul. It's over, because you're gonna keep, even if they took out your space dock, you're gonna orbital drop more ground forces elsewhere, and you can still make the retaliation. Yin doesn't have that option in most cases. So I think finding an opportunity, and even though it seems really intense, like finding an opportunity to strike at the Yin's home system, I think you should take it most of the time. That's maybe one of my biggest regrets in this game, is that I didn't jump on that home system when I had the chance.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say of the two of them, I think Yin is definitely the one hurting more for a forward dock.
Yeah.
And we've also seen a lot of Yin players go for Space Dock too. I feel like they're kind of second most popular to Nalu, with Nalu being clearly the most popular for Space Dock 2.
Right.
But I feel like we've seen that, and I definitely feel like Seoul has like a mobility factor over Yin, in that they have gravity drive most of the time, and like will just be able to move their stuff farther. But Yin with a pesky forward dock and transit diodes can kind of compensate for that lack of mobility, or that lack of blue tech, generally speaking.
Right. I love that point about Space Dock 2. Again, I think you go yellow first, and getting that Space Dock 2 allows you to replenish those ground forces that you can then transit diodes everywhere. I think that's the key to staying alive as Yin. And for Seoul, it's taking out those space docks as soon as you can, if you're able to. I mean, don't okay, let's get into the next part of it. At what point do you call it quits, right? Are you going to do that 8v8 ground combat? Or like, let's say, let's be a little bit more realistic. Let's say it's 10 Seoul versus 7 Yin, right? If Yin indoctrinates, it's a 9v8. Like, are you going to do that huge cataclysmic fight? It's probably almost all of both of your ground forces. Is that worth it? Or are the two of you just knocking each other out of contention at that point?
Do you want to play a game? Do you want to play a game?
Okay, what's the game?
I got the battle calculator right here. So let's just frickin' do it. And I want a prediction from you as far as what the percentage is going to be. Obviously, we kind of both know the answer to this question already, but it's upgraded Yin versus upgraded Seoul. And I'm gonna put Yin defending. How many ground forces are we giving them?
Give them 7. Make it a big scary fight. Give Seoul 10. Does that calculator account for indoctrination? That's the one fear I have.
We'll just do the math for it though. Let's say it started 10 versus 7, and then 9, 8. What do you think is the like? How bad is it though? You think?
Oh, how bad is it?
Yeah, like that's what I'm looking for here. Is Seoul blowing them out of the water, or is it kind of close?
It feels tight to me. I don't know. Seoul with a 60% favor.
Okay, it's 87% Seoul.
Oh,
yeah.
With 9 versus 8.
Yeah, it's that upgrade.
Interesting. I mean, yeah. Well, it makes sense. The upgrade goes further the more dice you're rolling. I mean, it's probably not 87 when it's a 2v1.
Right.
So that's interesting.
I think really the takeaway here is that if Seoul is focusing on Yin, I don't think that there's a lot that Yin can do about it. But Yin, by very nature of going for transit diodes, is going to be difficult to kind of pare down. But I think if you focus on them, I think you can do it. Like but it's like, if you're focusing on them, why are you not focusing on Mechatol Rex? That's kind of the Achilles heel, I feel like, of Seoul, is that there's so much necessity to be the one getting those Mechatol Rex points that I feel like an issue like this, that maybe in a regular game where you weren't focusing on Mechatol Rex, maybe Soul would do just fine. It would just be like, oh, Yin's not a problem because you're not distracted by it. So if you just focus on it, you got him.
Yeah. You know what's crazy?
I mean, even let's do an 8v8 real quick. Even an 8v8 is 70%.
I just flipped the script and I gave 9 fighting for Yin versus 8 for Soul, and it's still a 60% chance favorite for Soul to defend.
Yeah.
So Yin needs +2 ground forces to even get the advantage, and that basically completely flips it. That 1 ground force, you need a +2 advantage as Yin, you need a +1 advantage as Soul. That's my takeaway. If I'm attacking Yin and I'm Soul, make sure I have +1. After indoctrination, right? After indoctrination.
Right. Count on indoctrination.
If I'm Yin, I need +2 on Soul after indoctrination. And even then, it's almost a coin flip. So, like, you probably should do more.
Right.
Versus for Soul, having even +1 is enough, is plenty. So yeah, that's kind of crazy to me that Yin needs like +3 to get even into the same territory.
I think it's maybe a situation where Yin can disrupt Soul.
Yes.
Easier than Yin can straight up 1v1 Soul.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you can make it like more complicated for a Soul player, but I if you really get their attention, I really think it just comes down to Spec Ops 2. Spec Ops 2 is just
crazy.
So good.
Yeah.
So I mean, with that being said, maybe as a Yin player, the focus should be on am I saying this? I guess devotion, really.
Right.
It should be about making it so they can't bring enough to face you down, basically.
Right. There was a point in this game where I had a flagship. I had the Soul flagship and a carrier and plenty of fighters and plenty of ground forces. And I wanted to attack a fleet of Yins that had 1 carrier, 2 destroyers, and plenty of ground forces, but like not really that many fighters or anything. But I couldn't quite pull the trigger on it. I should be more thorough. I couldn't attack it with the flagship and a ton of fighters. That was 100% a losing fight because of the impulse core into devotion that he had.
Right.
So what the decision had to be, I have to bring 2 capital ships. The only way to win this fight is to bring the carrier and the flagship, or if in another situation it would be both, 2 carriers. Like that's what you have to do to stop the 2 destroyers. So that's a big deal. And so by leaning into devotion more than I'm typically comfortable with, it gives you this out against Soul where they suddenly, they could beat you on the ground game if they wanted to, but they have to consider looking the other direction. They got to go somewhere else because it's not worth the potential loss of those huge ships because they're typically building more fighters and more ground forces.
I got a hypothetical for you that I feel like is kind of relevant, but like maybe a little adjacent to what we're talking about. Is if you are playing Soul, do you not can you sell military support to Yin, basically?
I think absolutely not. I refused to all game. The last thing I ever needed was to hand them an advantage of infantry.
More infantry.
Maybe there's an argument there, but I don't see it. Unless they're like having to fuel a war. Like what was interesting about this game is on Yin's right was Sardak Nor. And what I really wanted was for Sardak Nor to also cause problems for Yin. Because with both of us having essentially the same skill of Infantry 2 or Infantry 1, that could have been a huge problem for Yin. But I wasn't quite able to get the Sardak to always be... he helped a lot, but the 2 of us could have just completely taken Yin out of the game. And I just think if there was another way to go about that, it would have been doing the support for the throne swap with Yin early and fueling their infantry army against Sardak. And that's like a completely different take on the whole situation. Is like if both of us had just turned our directions elsewhere and I had committed fully to trying to take out Nalu, which would have been a whole other kind of battle. And then Yin gets to solely work on Sardak. That's kind of an interesting picture. that I think could work. So there is maybe a world where the two of you need to, like we said, you shouldn't just plan on doing this, but like you two may be better off fortifying a border and just being like, we can't do this all game, or it's gonna end both of us no matter what. We need to ally and turn outward.
See, I think that relationship's better for Yin than it is for Soul, though.
Probably. That was kind of my fear.
Because that's what I'm kind of saying, is that, like, I feel like Yin, if they want to, can more easily sneak that one control objective off of Soul, whereas I feel like Soul is a little more committed to whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Yin has more room to breathe in the late game than it feels like Soul does. And yeah, I agree. Because Soul is probably going to be the enemy of the table in most games, unless we find a good way to not have that happen. That might be overall part of the Soul guide, is like, hey, don't take a lead, don't take an early lead. You don't need it.
I think
the
that's
meta works against you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major questions that we have to answer with the episode is, do we think it is still a good idea to rush for the early lead with Soul? I can't get away from the idea that if you can reliably get Mechatol points, it just makes it easier to win the game.
Yeah.
Because it frees you up to be able to win the game by just accomplishing secret objectives and stage 1 public objectives. It's like every time you get a Mechatol point, you're lowering the ceiling of harder points you have to actually achieve.
Yeah.
Because, like, basically anyone can achieve any of the stage 1s. It's the stage 2s where it gets really crazy. And it's not every stage 1. Obviously, there's the tech spec one that can be really difficult.
Sure.
But overall, in a lot of games, if you can make it where you can win the game without having to accomplish any stage 2s, I think there's something to that, and that is
definitely
always better, basically.
That's got to be the trick, and that was everybody's fear, even with me in that game, is they saw me getting a point lead, and they were kind of like, he might not have to worry about stage 2s if we let it get out of hand. So people are just always looking at you more when you're Soul.
Yeah.
Well, boy howdy, I feel like we kind of hashed a bunch of that out. I don't think there's an answer. I don't know. Do you have any other final words on Yin v Soul?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a fun way to do an episode, and I just want to say that this is the type of episode where I really feel like we're trying to invite as much errata as possible.
Yep.
We're interested in any thoughts you might have on Yin versus Soul, but also just Soul separately on its own. I think I want to try and be a little more proactive about, like, hey, this is some of the stuff we're working on.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts ahead of time so that maybe you've got the nugget that we need to kind of crack this thing, basically. Yeah. It's about making a strong guide for the community to kind of, like, evolve the play and keep it going forward.
Yeah. The flaws of the old guides are that there's a guide, and then next week there's some errata about the guide that is sometimes required listening. Mm-hmm. We don't want that with these guides. With these guys, these guides should be one episode, and you get everything you need. Yeah. So we're trying to get ahead of them as much as we can.
Right. I mean, honestly, I think we've said this before, but we shouldn't have called the first round strategy guides, really. Yep. They shouldn't have been guides. They
weren't at first, and then
they should have just been like beginner thoughts on these factions. But yeah, we have actually a very good amount of errata for you guys today. So do we want to skip on over to that? Are you ready?
Yeah, hoppity skippity.
Oh yeah, hoppity skippity doo, skippity scoppity da. Your first errata comes from Catherine de Zero.
Who's this stranger?
Yeah, I've never seen this name before. No, it's Zendog, baby. Just kidding. Minor point, but might have been worth mentioning that you can get War Sun tech from Muat or Jolnar too, thus making it potentially better for your faction, like Hakan, who has the money but doesn't want to go down the tech path, and will probably be buddies with Jolnar anyways. I had an awesome SAR plus War Sun game once because of a timely research agreement purchase. Also, maybe footnote about publicized weapon schematics. So I didn't do a very good job of setting up this errata. This is last week we talked about Can it War Sun? We were talking about every faction and whether it is viable for them to do War Suns. Zendog is throwing in, hey, it's actually, there is a whole nother way to get War Suns that basically any faction can go for, which is, cozying up to the Muat or the Jolnar.
Yeah. I'm glad that this is getting brought up. It's something we kind of specifically did not want to do last week. Last week was about, let's just take it vanilla. Can you do it? Is it worth doing it? But this is a great thing to talk about in errata of okay, who would like War Suns if they don't have to do the hard part, which is all the researching. And the quick answer could be, well, everybody. War Suns could be awesome if you don't have to do the tech path, but that's not true because they still cost $12, right?
Right.
So this point about Hakan and Sar and probably Barony and all these different factions that typically can get a lot of money, if you don't have to do the long part, the part that takes forever, then absolutely get War Suns. Why not? I mean, I guess the bigger question then becomes, how much do you pay to get that research agreement or to get that Muat note? Now, we talked about the Muat note a couple weeks ago, and we kind of ended up saying it's just hard to sell because of that $12 problem. So I guess Hunter, what do you think is the right way to go about this? If I'm gonna try to cheat my way into getting War Suns.
I think a lot of the points we made in the last episode still stand even with this. It's just that anytime we talked about tech path being an issue, you can just kind of take that negative away. But everything else we said is still very true. So I mean, I think the order that we kind of made of here's our top 5 and then kind of here's everybody else, I think all of that still makes sense. It's just everything gets shifted up a bit. But even, I think we said Ghost was a very interesting option. Right. And I think that's still true even with this being said. It's just if this is the case, then it's even easier. Right. But SAR still kind of, in the example, he was I had an awesome SAR plus War Sun game. I think that is a really good example of a faction that we mentioned the problem being mostly tech path, Right. So, if it's mostly tech path is the issue, then sure, if you want to plan for this, but, this changes nothing for, Sardak Nor, or, even really the kind of, I would call them, poorer factions, Yin. No, changes nothing for Yin. And also, I don't even know how...
Arborek.
Yeah, it changes nothing for basically any faction that doesn't kind of already have a predisposition for maybe going for War Suns. I would say Soul, maybe this is how Soul does War Suns. Maybe. Yeah. But even still, it's kind of it's kind of weird, and I don't see this happen so much. People are really excited about research agreement, but I think most of the time, if you're trying to get War Suns out of it, that might be a little bit of a waste on your part because there's so much else you could get out of it that is going to be reliably better for you.
Right, that you don't have to spend $12
and just less expensive, Yeah.
The Hakan point is especially fruitful, though, because you are going to have a really special relationship with Jolnar because you can do all kinds of crazy trades. You once Jolnar gets E-Res siphons, you can activate their stuff and trade the trade goods. And you guys will be rich. Go for it. If Jolnar even wants to do that, that's going to be the other problem, though, is as Jolnar, shouldn't that be my advantage? Don't I want to, when I research War Suns, I want to be the only one with them. I'm not really keen on giving out research agreement when it's time to go War Suns.
Yeah, you would think if you were Jolnar, you would basically want people to use research agreement for everything but that, basically.
So, next up is one from Super Cellcath, and Super Cellcath says, this is a long one, so strap in. War Suns, being a single unit, is not a disadvantage for Arborek, but it's an advantage. War Suns, being a single free unit, frees up Arborek to avoid Latani 2 and do more with less production capacity. War Sun allows even a single Arborek infantry to produce an intimidating force in any area of the map. War Sun Arborek should ideally have or take a red skip, which makes getting to War Sun viable. Starting with Majin means Arborek already has the worst part of researching War Sun behind them, and War Suns and Red Tech generally help Arborek with one of their greatest weaknesses, an inability to win space combats, especially in the late game where Arborek has to make up for lost ground. It's not something to go for every game or to plan to go for at the start of the game, but with a red skip, it's absolutely an option.
I see what they're saying. Also, I maybe we just misspoke when we were talking about production and Latani when it comes to War Sons, because I felt like that was the point that I was making, but maybe I just said it wrong.
I think Super Cellcath is responding to something I said, which is it feels like a waste of the amount of production capacity you can have. And this is a perfectly valid counter argument to that of like, don't do that. And if anything too, a lot of people as Arborek accidentally over-focus on getting too many infantry to the point where it's like, you have so much production and you're not going to use it. Why did you go that far? Now you don't have any fleets. You should have been doing that. And I see that argument, and I see how War Sons can bleed into that. But I'm still a little bit of a like, I kind of would rather see a blue-green Arborek get Fighter 2 and have big fighter swarms and that kind of thing. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I want to add this other thing before we finish talking about Arborek, though. Soe Penpai says, while I would agree that green Arborek is a lot better than Warsun Arborek, I believe that Warsun Arborek has its place. That place being any game the Necrovirus is also present in. Necro with Latani 2 should not be a thing, so you need to let the table know that you don't want to make them go nuclear, but you will if you have to. A few trades deals going your way to keep you out of green does a lot for the War Sun plan, in my opinion. It also feels like we'll finish Soe Penpai's point here in just a minute, but to finish talking about Arborek, I love this idea of threatening to go green when Necro's in the game and getting paid for it. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like Latani 2 is pretty bad for Necro to get. I agree, but also like another thing that's bad for Necro to get is War Sons. So yeah. I don't know that right. It kind of sounds like you're. I mean, it's about picking the lesser of two evils, I guess.
Yeah.
But.
Part of this War Sun Arborek conversation was, and there were lots of people that talked about this, which is that PDS Arborek is very great, and you should do PDS Arborek. There's just a debate on whether or not you go further than that to dip into War Suns. But the fact that you start with Majin, and you're almost definitely getting Sarween, many people have pointed out that PDS Arborek is maybe the most effective way to play Arborek, because you can defend your early game, whereas normally you would have issues. If you get that PDS2 right away, many people have found lots and lots of success with that. But I couldn't get too many people to say they would continue to pull the trigger to War Suns. But us saying Arborek shouldn't necessarily get War Suns is not us saying Arborek shouldn't get PDS2.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me. But
I was obsessed with PDS2 Arborek for a while, actually. I played like 2 or 3 games back to back like that. I think Arborek in general is just tricky, and I don't know. Yeah. Like, I don't know how to do it. So if I sounded negative about PDS2 Arborek last week, I don't remember if I did.
I think it's probably akin to how I feel about Ghosts, where it's like, Ghosts aren't bad, but boy, did I just have trouble with them.
I think Arborek might be worse than
definitely.
I don't know.
They're worse than Ghosts, but regardless, I think I see all the arguments, and we leaned a little bit towards War Sons for Arborek, and then we eventually decided no. So they're certainly on the fence, and I'm not gonna scoff at an Arborek who decides to go War Sons. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be like that's an absolute mistake. It's just kind of like I don't know if that'll save you.
I think all these points stand, and I agree with what they're saying. I think that it's one of those things where Arborek just has so many games where the early game goes poorly, and then they don't really recover from that. That I feel like that's what's giving me a lot of hesitation about this idea. But I am interested enough to. I've never tried to go War Sun Arborek, and I think next time I play Arborek, if it seems possible, I might go for it. Like this sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, similar to Soe Penpai's point about Arborek versus Necro, they had this to say. I also feel like you're missing a point regarding the Barony of Letnev. If your neighbor is the Nalu Collective, and they are going Neuroglaive, you should at least consider going War Sons. When Neuroglaive comes online, you move all of your tokens out of Fleet Pool. 1 Dread and 1 War Sun and a handful of fighters is as good as almost any Nalu fleet.
Yeah. I agree with this. This is a little too focused, though, I feel like.
This is very focused.
You're changing your entire game and going after War Sons, which luckily Barony doesn't. I mean, tech path wise, it's a little bit better for them than it is for most people. But this is you changing your entire game just based off Neuroglaive. Right. So this would necessitate a very aggressive Nalu that is a problem for you. If we're talking about a neighbor, like, it's sort of like what we were talking about today with Sol versus Yin. If you did a support swap with Yin, a lot of these things don't really stand. That we said in the episode today, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, I cut out some stuff, too, about him talking about his preferred path, which involved doing Dreadnought 2 first and then going for War Sons. And there's a part of me where it's like, well, that's a lot. That's a lot of tech to get, even with the red skip or whatever. So that's a tough one. But I do love that point of I am not afraid of you, Nalu, with your Neuroglaive because I'm Barony and I have an answer. If I decide to go for it.
This is one of those things that the type of thing that people bring up sometime where I'm like, oh, I really like this idea. And if I saw somebody pull it off, I would be like, that is so slick and cool.
Yeah.
How Neuroglaive is not hurting you whatsoever and you can still beat Nalu. But the other thing is like, you got to set this up. I mean, this person didn't even say that they, like in this, I know you just said like, oh, they say that they went for Dread 2 and you cut that out. But it's even in this example, you pretty much have to have Dread 2 and War Sun for this to work, this idea. Because otherwise your Dreads are just moving one, and that's kind of rough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to work out.
Well, I guess a Gravity Drive is really all you need, so then it's not too bad. But.
Right. So this last one is from Stronkowski, and he says, Ghosts. You missed 2 of their pro War Sun advantages. This is just to say... Because we ended up saying we like War Sons for Ghosts.
Yeah.
So Stronkowski's just pointing out 2 things we didn't even mention that makes it even better for Ghosts.
Right.
First, they have Dimensional Splicer, which is a great tech that is not only red, but is a mage and skip. That's huge, and we didn't even bring it up.
Yeah.
So important to note. Second, their flagship can help you get a fleet from home base to anywhere very quickly. So that's an additional advantage you left out for both tech path and for forward space docks. Ghost doesn't need the forward space dock if they have their flagship.
Right.
Now, are you going to afford a flagship and a War Sun? That's a lot. It's possible, but that's a lot.
Yeah, I'll also say this. I'm starting to get of the opinion that it is not worth building your flagship unless you are certain that no one is going to destroy it for a point, basically.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
every flagship, besides Extra is like kind of questionable to me now. And honestly, the Phil Collins is one of the weaker flagships as like a combat ship. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. We're not going to get into a whole thing about Ghosts, but it is definitely tricky. And while I agree, I especially agree with the Dimensional Splicer replacing Mage and
for
Point.
sure.
But the flagship thing is kind of whatever. But regardless, you're also probably going to have a forward space dock as Ghosts anyways.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all the errata.
We did it.
Hey, Hunter, will you right now rate this podcast on iTunes or Apple Podcasts?
I haven't, but I'm still kind of on the fence about it and enjoying it. Like I need to see more before I commit to what stars I'm going to do. I've been thinking about it, but I
Yeah.
Working
on that perfect review.
I like one of the guys, but the other one, I'm like,
You can also follow us on Twitter at SpaceCatsPod. You can find us on Facebook, Space Cats Peace Turtles. Please join the Twilight Imperium subreddit for great posts and discussion that happen there. We post there every week, and that's an easy way to get into the errata. You can also join our Patreon. Patrons are the ones currently selecting game number 2. So if you want to decide between Root or Dune, the new edition of Dune that is supposed to be available at GenCon, and Root, which has a Kickstarter going on for their next expansion. If you want one of those 2 games, join the Patreon just for $1 to be a part of the voting. Right. You can also join for higher dollar amounts to do things like what I did today, which is I played with a bunch of Good Yin Brotherhood members, and it was an incredibly wonderful experience. You can join our Discord for fun conversation and Patreon benefits. And Hunter, do you have some comedy you want to talk about?
So if you happen to live in Portland, Oregon, this is basically just for you. But I have a very big show coming up that's really exciting. It's part of a series of shows I do every summer, but this is probably the biggest one we've ever done. It's called Comedy house show comedy party. God, I don't know what the name of the show is anymore because everybody just calls it comedy party, but it has a dumber name than that. There will be a link to where you can buy tickets to this show. It's happening on July 27th at a very special place called Desert Island Studios. It's a $10 show, but you'll get to see me doing stuff and comics of a very high caliber, including one friend of mine who writes for Jim Jeffries, and then also my personal favorite comedian I've ever known, period. His name is Milan Patel. He is so funny, and he's going to actually close out the show for us. And it's just going to be, rad. And this show is basically like a once in a year opportunity. We basically only do it to the caliber we're going to do it this month. We basically do that one time. So please come check it out if you live in Portland. It's going to be so much fun.
It's the rules quiz.
That was, of course, our rules quiz jingle. Could you tell that we had that commissioned? We paid a scat singer to record that for us. That was definitely not just Matt doing that off the cuff. That we paid a lot of money for that.
It's a lot. It's the Patreon dollars go to something, Hunter.
Yeah, and we paid Wolfie O'Malley, scat singer from New Orleans, to throw that out for us. Wolfie.
Hunter, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
It's on theme today.
Great.
If Yin indoctrinates your only ground force, and that ground force is infantry 2, do you get to roll to see if that ground force goes home? Furthermore, does Yin get to use Dax of animators if they win?
Okay.
If they indoctrinate that ground force.
Yeah. So before I mess this one up, I just want to say part of the rules for this for me is that I don't get to look up anything at all.
Right.
So
this is an easy answer if you can look things up, but I want to see what he knows off the cuff.
It's hard for me to remember if indoctrinate specifically states that the ground force is dying.
Right.
I'm going to say that you don't get to roll, but Yin does get to Daxiv. No, wait, combat didn't take place. Yin does not get to Daxiv.
You had it. You were so close, Hunter.
Did I almost get... Did I mess it up?
The combat did take place. You were right.
Yeah.
It is the wording is the only instance of the word replace in the rulebook, which doesn't have a definition. But because it doesn't say destroy, you are right that the infantry does not get to re-roll. But for the furthermore part, that ability triggers at the start of combat, which means you are in combat when it happens, even though Yin then gets to use Daxiv, which means if you're Yin versus Soul and Yin brings 1 ground force and attacks your 1 ground force on a planet, Yin, without rolling any dice and only spending 2 influence, will end up with it's correct, 3 infantry. That's the power of Yin, right? Is those moments. That's why you don't want to have weak spots as Soul. It's just like, whoops, that 1 ground force turned into green. I just let Yin multiply out of nowhere, and now I have a problem that's going to be next round. Next round, that's 6 ground forces that are going to attack me somewhere else or whatever.
They are like the best argument for yellow-green, really. Like the synergy between Daxiv, and we didn't even talk about Daxiv.
No, we didn't.
In the scope of this episode, which we messed up. There's something to errata us on right now. Please send errata saying, why didn't you guys talk about Daxiv? Especially since I've requested it. Please.
Well, we definitely will because people I can't
believe I almost got that one right. And then
I know, I feel bad for you.
I just like last minute was like, no, there's no way you got it right.
Every week on the Discord, there's a couple people that like listen to the podcast and kind of comment on it live. And I love that they do this, but I also hate that they do this. It's like Blarknob and it's Brian, and they just start throwing out errata, and it's like, listen, bud, stick around for 10 minutes and we fix it, okay? Give me 10 minutes and I'll fix it. But no, it's fine. You're right. You're always right, but just make me feel better.
We've got a play of the week this week too.
You want to do it? You want to read it?
Yeah. So this is
one. This is one that you requested a few weeks ago, and I've been neglecting to put it on the docket. But during promissory notes, you asked for anyone who had stories about really awesome Infinity Gauntlets.
So this is our Infinity Gauntlet Play of the Week. This was submitted by David. Thank you very much, David. In a 5-player, 14-point game, I played Excha, playing into Diplomacy. Ooh, how dare you? I was far behind from disproportionate resource distribution, so players were not adverse to profiting from the underdog. One player did a support swap. Another was bought with instinct training. Another was for quashing. And the last one was a spur of the moment, I need trade goods. I jumped on them or negotiated it, all while maintaining an underdog status and ensuring the big bad barony. So what he's saying is that he's getting
he has 4
support for the
thrones. He has every single support for the throne. But meanwhile, Big Bad Barony with War Sons and Dreads were still the public enemies.
So they were public enemies. I couldn't attack anybody, but my fortified PDS bunker ensured nobody would attack me. Diplomacy allowed me to annex just enough rich planets, and I even managed to annex unaligned Magi's home system's second planet. Well, now that's crazy.
That's like a whole other story that's not
Magi, how did you let... Oh, my God. There's so much egg on your face right now, Magi. I was speaking when the final agenda phase... I was speaker. I was talking to my friend. No. I was speaker when the final agenda phase turns around. Representative government law comes out. 1 vote per player is in place.
It was already in place, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're voting on this with representative government. Sorry,
I've never read anything before. So both voting action cards were spent, and I had surreptitiously moved 11 command counters to my strategy pool. God, these are like my favorite stories when people talk about this. On the second vote, I quashed until I got mutiny, played 3 political secrets to silence my other opponents, ensuring I got the mutiny point. I withstood a turn of defending my slice and popped Imperial. That's really wild. That's like, I mean, that's on
5
them though.
Points from nothing. That's 5 points out of thin air.
I can't believe that it didn't trigger like the later one, like especially the
I know.
The like, oh, I need trade goods. I feel like I would be like, I'm not gonna let you get
the last one.
The last one. Like I'd be like, I'm not gonna give this to you for no matter what. I'm not doing this. But I mean, I love it. I think that's amazing. Especially that
was almost a double.
Yeah, I was about to say, like the fact that he was able to that he was able to annex unaligned Magi's home systems, one of those planets, after getting his support for the throne. I mean, that is
How did you even get adjacent to unaligned Magi's home system?
There's so much I want to know about this game.
Yeah.
What a cool one. Thank you, David. Thank you so much.
David.
I got to ask more for specific plays of the week because this was great. All right. Hey, so here's something interesting. If you thought my energy was weird this episode, I walked across Portland to get back to my house, and the hot sun basically I basically overheated and have been in I feel like I've been walking through a desert, and my brain isn't working too well right now, and I feel kind of sick. So this was a sick day for me, just so you guys know. I came into work on my sick day. Should have called in.
As your employer, we never ask of you to do that, but we appreciate the sacrifice.
Oh, that's good. Matt, you're going to be a good manager for a restaurant sometime. Have I ever told you that? That was a good manager for... Oh, well, we accept no liability when it comes to you and your choices, but we do appreciate it.
Well, when EJ and I open up our board game bar in Fayetteville, Arkansas, you're hired. This
is not the first time that he's talked about this. I'm really excited about this idea. Just having like a cool... Now, obviously, this is a horrible business idea. Like this is not gonna work. In Arkansas, you really think of board game?
No way.
There are board game bars in quirky old Portland, Oregon that are failing, basically. and we're quirky and goofy out here. I don't know if you guys have heard, but keep Portland weird, right?
Thank you for listening to Space Cats Peace Turtles, and thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.